Thanks, Olaf, for the introduction. Thanks, everyone, for being here this afternoon. Didn't expect such a crowd. So Olaf said, I'm Chema, and I work as a front-end engineer for Liferay. I'm based on our Madrid office in Spain. So any mistakes I'll make today, which might be some, we can just blame on jet lag. So if you haven't met me before, you might remember me from similar talks like making Liferay a place for modern web developers in 2015. Or maybe you saw me on modern building blocks for a modular frontend in 2016. Or maybe you even saw me last year talking about modern frontend workflows in Liferay portal. And I know what you're wondering by now. Was I wearing the same shirt in all those 3 years? Did anyone notice? Well, I just leave you wondering about it. The reason why I wanted to start with that was to show how much in Liferay, how much we care about developer experience, how much effort we put into making sure that we provide you and then that we give you the right tools to make your job and to produce excellent experiences with a very low cost. So this has been a long quest for us. It's been something we've been working for a very, very long time. And of course, there's always the question of why are we doing this? So why are we spending all this time? Why are we flying across the world to just talk to a room full of people about the things you're doing? And I think yesterday's keynote actually had a very, very good pointers about that. And one question that was made was, how do you keep ahead of your competition, right? So how do you compete in this digital world? How do you codify everything you do? How do you think as a software company? And that's where I think Liferay is providing a lot of the right answers, because that's why we provide a very extensible, very flexible experience platform. So you can keep ahead. You can just get some things for granted. You can get some things out of the box, so you don't have to think about those. You don't have to spend time figuring out some of those details that are not core to your business and that are not delivering value to your customers. So whether you're building customer portals, partner portals, intranets, public web-facing sites, whatever you're doing, Liferay DXP helps you in doing this quicker, right? And whether it is through their content management set features, collaboration, developer tools, you have a whole brand of users, roles, groups, management permissions. There's a lot of things that a lot of features that you can get out of the box from Liferay. And that frees you and your IT departments to do the thing they do best, which is program and code for your specific needs. But of course, because we have such a rich platform and we offer such a rich environment, that doesn't come for free. It comes with a cost. It comes with a different environment that some of your users, some of your developers are not used to. And this is particularly painful in today's modern front-end world, right? Where developers are expecting some things that are completely different to what they find later when they go to a portal environment. So that's where we're struggling, and that's where we're putting more and more our efforts into trying to match our front-end developers' expectations when they move to a different environment where they control the page, they control the navigation, their app is the only thing that matters in the world, right? There's no one else that can actually tell them the contrary. But then they move to a platform where there are other apps competing for the navigation, for the control, for the permissions. They're sharing the same space. They have to collaborate at the same time. So how do we get those together? How do we close that gap? And just to give some more context, you might be thinking, like, what are those developer expectations? What does a front-end developer expect today? At the time of last year's talk, which might be similar, NPM registry contained over 500,000 packages. NPM, for those of you who might not know, is the registry where most of the JavaScript modules are stored. And you can share them, you can reuse them, you can access a huge, so to say, knowledge base and of shared knowledgement. So, if you think that things stop there, 1 year later, NPM contains over 800,000 modules. If you think about it, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of knowledge. That's a lot of time that other developers have put into creating applications, creating libraries, and making them available to you. So with that in mind, it's not hard to think that a developer, a front-end developer, expects to be able to harness the power of all those features. So if you're a bank company and then you're actually building your bank applications, you want to get in touch with some of your customers, the last thing you want your developers to do and to care about might be validating the phone number, right? You need to do it anyways. But is that the core business? Is that what your developers should be thinking about? How to actually validate phone numbers across states, across countries, across whoever, time zones maybe. So it's not really useful to you to do that. So a developer expects to be able to use some of the existing libraries that already do that and do it really well. And then they can focus on creating the right experience for you. So when you move into Liferay, then it's very easy to understand why questions keep popping up from time to time on our forums, Slack channels about how can I use this? How can I use this jQuery plugin? How can I access this NPM library? How do I use React here? So for us, the solution, and this traces back 2 years ago, was very easy. We'll just implement NPM support. Said and done. Well, not so easy, but we started thinking about it. And we put 3 main requirements or constraints on our solution that we wanted. One was that a developer, a front-end developer, should be able to use any tools that she wanted to. So we don't want her to actually think about or force her to think about which tools she uses. She can just choose, and then she should be able to just pick on her own. The second thing was that we didn't want her to think about how to assemble that for a specific platform like Liferay. So this should be something transparent for the front-end developer. In the end, after all, this application is going to a different environment, as we said at the beginning. So how does that application that was built with a different mindset, how does that now play nicely with other applications in the environment? So if 2 applications, let's say 2 React applications, live together on the same page, how do we make sure that experience is performant? It doesn't degrade the system when they get together. Is that something that the developer should think about it? Or can we do something so that they can simply develop? I won't get into details, like into many technical details about this, but this is what we came up with. You can check last year's talk about it. So the main idea is that a developer is just doing what she does best, which is code and develop. And she's using all the NPM libraries that are available to her. She's just implementing the features that her product manager is asking her to do. By the time she's done and the app is ready, she just needs to deploy to Liferay portal. There's where some of the magic starts happening. So we created that piece in there that's called the NPM bundler. If you know Webpack, Rollup, Parcel, Browserify, all of those are front-end tools that allow you to create a bundle, let's say an application, based on different files that are separated. So the NPM bundler is just the same thing, the same concept. It's only that the output that it produces, it's well suited for the Liferay portal. So it allows us to do some very interesting thing down the road. So this is just a build step. It so happens to create a Node.js bundle, and then it goes to the portal, where we do some magic, like figuring out how many NPM libraries are in there so we can make them available. When the time comes and some client goes into the site, and then there's a page where we have different applications, and then based on the applications that are in there, we just figure out what's the best and minimal set of requirements and dependencies that match that existing page. So if you have 3 React applications, we'll just figure out, like, based on all the dependencies, what do we need to serve so that all applications can run. And believe it or not, that actually works. It's available in 7.0. There's documentation live, so if you're on GA5 or Fixpack 30 or above, you can already work with that. So this is what we presented last year. And of course, people were just excited to see this. We got stellar reviews about this. My grandma was super happy. She's very into Liferay, I promise. So sure, my grandma was happy, but not everything is as perfect as we'd like to be. So we started seeing there was some flaws or some some problems with the design. And you can read more about this as well. You'll get all the links. But just to make it more or less quick, we saw that after all, we still were forcing our developers to have some library knowledge. Whether it was in tooling, like Blade or Gradle, you had to know about this. And some of those were even Java-based tooling, which is not something a front-end developer particularly enjoys. Also, we needed some other knowledge, like OGI, Portlet-specific, which wasn't also something we were very fond of. Assembling the application was still maybe a bit complex, and the biggest problem we found was that because we were trying to be so smart about it, because we were being so aggressive on optimizing on your platform, some things or some results were unexpected. So imagine you have two different apps, they're using a shared library or the same library, but they're asking for different versions. Of course, what we did, and which makes sense on paper, was we'll just give both the same. And which one? Just the latest one, or the best one that matches both expectations. So on paper, that works. And then both applications could run and got their dependencies properly served. What happens in today's software world is that it never really works. So sometimes you might get a dependency, you get a module, but it's not the one you used, it's not the one you tried. So there might be other things in there that you didn't expect, or there might be fewer things, so it's not really under your control. So when we were changing those dependencies underneath, things started to break, right? In very unexpected ways, because we were just giving you different set of libraries that you didn't account for. So this was a problem on the long run. So we just did what we know best, which was we went back to the whiteboard and tried to fix these issues. And we based it on we tried to address two main issues. The main one that we tried to address was scope dependencies, or that's how we tried to fix it. And what I mean by scope dependencies. So this is how, if you're targeting I11, how your code would really look like. How many of you are targeting I11 yet? Can you raise hands? Just us? Oh, wow. Then that doesn't look like anything that you might need to think about. But eventually, like, this is just a module, and it's requiring Angular. So this is just taken from an Angular application. And then you have your application that depends on Angular core. So when you actually get to run this code on production, it's just saying I have a module, and it depends on Angular. For sure, if now you have 3 applications that all depend on Angular core, when the time comes, we'll just give all of them the same one. Which one? We don't know. We can tell, but they will all get the same one. As I already explained, this is a problem. And the way we fixed that was very simple. It's just we'll namespace all your dependencies. If you think about it, if you know how other bundlers work, like Webpack or Rollup, they pretty much just take all the state of your application, all your dependencies, and then they will create a big bundle for you with everything in there, right? So there's no way for anything to go wrong, because that's the thing you're being testing. So this is more or less the same approach, but it's just targeting the Liferay portal. So not only we are changing the name, but we're also changing how it looks on the file system for you. So this is not something you see, this is just something that happens behind the scenes. So now we have something that's more similar to Webpack. You create your app, you try with your dependencies, those are the ones that will get served for you, and that's it. So no surprises there. And we took this step back to make sure that we could evolve in the future. And now the question could be, okay, if you're doing the same thing that Webpack is doing, why should you do it at all? And that's a good question, a very valid question, and one that we asked ourselves. And the answer, or at least for us, is that Webpack is still a third party, a proprietary software that is doing a lot of things, is doing them very well, but it's targeting a different use case, right? So with our own bundler, we have the option to actually optimize for that platform. It's the only way that we have some control over what's happening, and that gives us some freedom to actually improve on the long run. So with this in mind, we said, okay, what we lost was having or being able to share dependencies between modules. So if you have three Angular applications running on the same page, For sure, you don't want them to be loading the same Angular framework over and over 3 times. And this is where performance comes a bit into play. And when we talk about performance, a lot of the times we're just thinking about bytes transferred over the while. And that's fine, so that's just one of the metrics, but it's not the only one that that we need to be thinking about. Because transferring bytes is today more or less cheap. Networks are fast and reliable. Still, you can find yourself going through a tunnel, so you'd rather have less bytes sent than more, but that's just something that you can think about. But more or less, you can account for that. But the thing sometimes we're not actually considering is that when you're sending JavaScript, someone needs to run it, and that's fine, right? Someone's going to actually pay the price of running that code for you. You're not taking that hit on your servers. You're not actually doing anything. You're just sending it to someone else. If that someone else is like a laptop or a desktop, then you might be fine. If that one is an iPhone, a high-end mobile device, you're going to be fine. Things are going to be really fast. Now, if that device is a medium to low-end phone, for example, things are going to start to degrade very fast. So you have to think about how are your users actually consuming your applications or your websites or your services, because it might not be what you expect. It might not be that everyone's on the latest iPhone. And then the app that works really fast on your phone or in your laptop suddenly starts lagging and being unusable for your customers. So performance still needs to be something to think about. So we wanted to provide a way to actually fix this issue. And rather than actually being smart about it this time, we thought that we could let these developers decide, because they actually know when they're going to need it. And so we just provided a simple opt-in provider strategy. So if you have a module, everything is available to other modules. So on the left, you have there's just a regular JavaScript bundle that you can create that depends on your shared things. So all your shared framework, your shared libraries. You don't need to think or to do anything about it. So in this case, this one is just providing all the Angular Bootstrap stuff for Angular 5, for an Angular 5 application. Now on the right side, we have the consumer applications, the ones we're actually writing, our developers are writing. And now the only difference is that we're marking that we'll be consuming those modules from somewhere else. It's not magic, it's just saying, hey, I don't need to get these modules for myself. I don't want them in my final artifact. I'll just get them on runtime. Someone is going to give it to me, because I know. If we look at the code we were looking before, this was where we finished. So we have our scope dependency, and for sure now doing this change just means this namespace changes to something else. So this means that on runtime now, I'm not depending on myself to actually inject Angular, but on someone else. And no further changes are needed, and then this just works. So you can provide something that will help all your developers stay on the same page. Now, every developer, every application is going to receive the same Angular core and from the same module, and they can test with the same one. So they can be sure that they're actually opting into that, and things are going to work for them. Now, again, Grandma was really happy. Now, when she saw this, she knew this was the answer for that. But we weren't happy with that. We weren't entirely happy. We wanted to take it one step further. And so today, you can build JavaScript, you can build Liferay portlets just with JavaScript tooling. And that's what we are here today to announce. So if you go to, well, documentation is up, so you can just check after the event. And you can go to the marketplace today. And for both C and DXP 7.1, you can install this little piece of software that is going to magically turn a regular JavaScript application into a portlet for you. So hopefully your front-end developers won't need to think about Java classes and portlets and annotations and all that stuff. So how does that work? It's a bit of magic, but I'll walk you through it. So to help with this, we created a simple Java generator. It's not really necessary, but it just helps you get started with all the bootstrapping. So if you know how usually Java generator works, you'll just run Yo or your library bundle. It will give you a set of choices. In this case, you could choose between different front-end frameworks, React, Vue, Angular, and that then will just walk you through a set of questions How do you want your application, your portlet to be named? Where do you want to find it on the add panel? Do you have a Liferay installation? If so, give me the path so I can actually deploy to Liferay. It will just go through npm install like every human generator does. And then by the time when it's over, you'll just have actually a front-end project, like any other project you're used to, with Webpack Dev Server, if you're using TypeScript compiler, Babel for React, anything you can think of. There's just some things that are a bit different. So we have a portlet field on the package.json. So maybe your front ends don't care about this and don't need to know about this, but someone might. So you can actually tweak the end result portlet. You can make it instantiable. You can just add any of the portlet configuration settings that you know straight in the package.json file. So you have some control over the end result. And something that's not particularly Liferay dependent only, we have this main entry point. That's a very common practice in the front-end world to specify the entry point of your application. So the only thing that we actually need to make this work is, the only thing we ask of you is that your main entry point is a function. That's the only thing we need. So in that function, we're giving you control over the rendering. So we're going to take care of creating a portlet for you, making it available so you can actually move it around. Your admins can add it to dashboards anyway, in the way you're used to. And then by the time we need to render, we're just going to defer to you to do that work. So we're going to be calling that entry point that you provide with some parameters. So those would be like a namespace. You know, if you have the same application, you don't want your IDs to crash. So we're going to give you a namespace so you can take care of that if you want. And we'll give you the ID where you can draw things. So if you're doing React, you know how to actually get this started. You don't need anything else. That's actually how you would start your application. We're just telling you where. And that's it. OK, I see some faces. I actually told some guys that they shouldn't be doing this, but it's always funnier. So I'll just do live demo here. So just to convince you all that this actually works. And it's just as simple. So I have here, I actually ran my human generator before, just so we don't have to sit waiting for npm to install. And I'm going to demo the Vue application first. This is just, as you see here, this is just a regular Vue application. It just has web dependencies. It depends on Vue. It has npm scripts. The only thing is that we're actually running our bundler at the end. That's what's making some of the magic. And then it has the fields that we talked about. On the main entry point, the only thing we have is, as we said, an export a function that takes an element ID, and that's where we choose to mount our Vue application. If you see this, there's nothing weird about this. It's just a JavaScript application running. The cool part about this is that now, because this has nothing to do with Liferay, you can even just run it locally. So this is Webpack Dev Server. This is your application. You can imagine your front-end developer just coding happily, being very happy about it. Right? And when it saves, then things just save as expected. Right? That's what a front-end developer is doing nowadays. So why shouldn't they? Now, when they're over, when they're done, what they can do is just actually deploy the thing. So they can just also run the deploy command, and then down there is just generating the artifact for them. Because we already said where Liferay is, it sent the artifact to Liferay where we created the portlet for you. So now, if you go to, I logged out. That's why you never do live demo. OK. It was not so bad. So now your Vue application is there. So remember, we haven't done any Java, we haven't compiled anything, but your Vue application is just here and is showing whatever you did. So your front end is happy, almost didn't have to touch Portal at all, and could get an application up and running. And surely this is not a very complex application, so let's try to spice it up a bit. I'm going to this other React application I have here, and while I explain, I'll just start it. So now I have a standalone application. This is something that's consuming APIs as headless. It's a React application. If you go here, again, it's just rendering. So this is how it looked before we actually tried to do anything with it. it's rendering an application. And this one actually depends on React Router, so it's routing stuff. It has access to APIs. If you see on the package.json, it's using Axios to create requests. It even has a node proxy to actually get authentication working, so you can actually get requests. So this is how it looked before. This is created with Create React App. And then this is just a very simple application. You have login. So now auth is being worked out with a proxy server, so we get the auth tokens and everything. And it's just consuming library services, like users and document library. That's a nice document library I have. So how much do you think it will take to take this app into a live report? Anyone wants to guess? No takers? OK, so as you might imagine, otherwise I wouldn't be saying so, it doesn't take a lot. If we go, now I have like a portlet version of it. If you see, dependencies are the same, so nothing has changed here. I'm still using the same things I was using before. So I don't need to adapt for that. The only thing I'm now changing is rather than just using the create script, the React scripts, I'm using combination of Babel and npm bundler. That's just a very specific thing. And then my main entry point just changed a little. Rather than just running or mounting my React app out of the box, I'm just actually exposing the function. So I'm saying whenever this gets called and whenever this portlet element or this element ID gets passed to me, that's where I want to render the app. But if you remember the other case, it's the same code. There's no difference. And the app itself, it's just the same. It's using React, it's using router, it's doing API calls. There's one particular, let me deploy this while I keep talking. So now, whenever you're done, again, you can just deploy this app, and then a jar will be created for you. There's one difference. There's something I didn't mention on the portlet stuff, or on this example, is that we don't have to authenticate anymore. Like, the app is living inside Liferay. So the platform is taking care of the authentication for you. You might have single sign-on. You might have LDAP configured. We don't know. But the app doesn't need to care about an authorization strategy anymore because it's sitting inside the portal. So that's already fixed for you. And if we go here now, our React portlet shows it's the same portlet. It has the same functionality. It has access. It's accessing remote APIs the same way. You have your document library here. You can even, if you don't like cats, which I don't know, might be a weird thing, but there's people that prefer corgis, I've heard. So you can just upload your photos. So services are working. If you go to your remote app, the one that sits outside, you see the app is being updated again. So all the changes are working. Both apps are working at the same time. They actually share 99% of the code. All your changes are working as you expect. And that's how much it takes to bring a React app into Liferay today. So I don't know about you, but yeah, my grandma wasn't very happy. She just said, Java portlets are so much better. Anyways, I hope that you liked the presentation. I hope you're excited about this. We'd love any feedback and ideas you might have. We hope to be moving in the right direction. We are doing this to help you and to give you more power to get out of the way and let you just build awesome experiences. If you want to know more about this, after the coffee break, we have a workshop, and we'll be demoing how to actually build Angular portlets inside Liferay. So thank you very much.